Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Bagel Podcast. This is episode 15 of the Weekly Bagel Podcast, and my name is Mr. Chime. Welcome. Well, today I am going to be talking about something that has been quite the issue with young working class adults, and that is splitting rent with roommates. This is often something that is not really discussed in immense detail for anyone who is interested in acquiring a roommate or sharing some bills by having someone to share that with. And the reason why I think this is important is because in the current state of our economy today, in most of our cities here in the States, one needs to, or one might need to have a roommate in order to help bring down the cost of living. And in a situation like that, I feel like anyone looking for a roommate needs to sit down and talk to the roommate and have a contract that detail how to split bills. This is regardless of whether it's utility bills, rent, or any other kind of bills that has to do with the rental expense. If not, majority of issues with roommates usually start from this: not having a clear understanding of who is to pay what monthly, and secondly, boundaries. But mostly when issues start in an arrangement like this, it's often as a result of bills not being paid or people not making their own financial contributions as agreed before a room was rented out to somebody. So that's why I think it's very important that I talk about this, since there are many working class adults out there that may need to get a roommate in order to help them cut down the cost of renting an apartment. Well, if you're going to be such a person, how do you split rent with your roommate? Well, first of all, if you listen to episode 5 of the Weekly Bagel Podcast, where I talked about whether it was smarter to get a roommate or to live alone by yourself, I talked about the benefits of a roommate. Having a roommate will help you cut down the cost of living immensely. But at the same time, it comes at the cost of your peace, because not only are your boundaries tested sometimes, but the person you might get as a roommate may not end up holding their side of the deal. And this is the biggest issues that tend to arise. So in a situation like that, once you find somebody that you're interested in making in having as a roommate, you two need to sit down and talk about what is going to happen. You two need to sit down and go through the rental expense. You need to tell the person exactly what the rental expenses are going to be month to month, and arrive at the total cost of renting that apartment unit. And from there, you guys could talk about how to split the rent. Usually, there are 6 ways of going about splitting the rent, and this often depends on, firstly, who gets to have the biggest space. You guys could agree on that. Take for instance, there are some apartment units, maybe 2-bedroom apartment units, where you have a master's and then you have another room, and then the master's bedroom tend to have a restroom inside, and there's the shared living room and a shared kitchen, but each person has their own restroom. In such a situation, you could always bargain with the supposed roommate on whoever is going to take the master bedroom, which is usually the bigger of the 2 bedrooms. The person should pay more rent, not by a high margin, but by a little bit, since it's the biggest room in the apartment. Excuse me. And usually people go for this. If you are going to have the master bedroom, which comes in with its own restroom and the room size is usually bigger, the closet is usually bigger, then if you are the person that is going for that, then you should pay more. If your roommate is going to have the smaller room by the end of that apartment unit, then the roommate will pay less. But it depends. And some people may go for it. Some people may be like, no, we want to do a 50-50 split, which is secondly the next thing to do. You could disregard using the room size to split the rent or the bills, or you could talk about we're all going to split the bills down to 50-50. Let us say if the apartment unit rent is $2,000 monthly, that's the total rental expenses, $2,000. We are going to split it down to 1,000 per person. I pay 1,000, you pay 1,000, regardless of who has whatever room. You could also go by responsibility share. Take for instance, if the roommate that you found has a steady job and a steady job history. I talked about this in episode 5 where I talk about the venting process towards getting a roommate. But anyway, if you have vented your roommate and your roommate has a steady job history and currently a job and a steady income coming in, but they are a low income earner, and you obviously your income is way higher than the person, but you still need a roommate, you could go by responsibility share. And what does this mean? This means that since the person doesn't really earn much, the person could take on more apartment responsibilities with respect to more chores in order to have less rent being paid from their own pocket. For instance, okay, the person is going to be the person, one of you, not the person, one of you has to be the person doing dishes, taking out the trash, or all these other miscellaneous chores. If the person agrees on doing that, you could cut the rent for such a person, right? Take for instance, if the total rental expenses per monthly is $2,000, because the person is the one doing most of the chores, as a result of the income the person gets, you could be paying $1,300 while the person pays $700. And this is something that needs to be, agreed on, and it has to be a contract that is written and signed. And whoever chooses to, has the higher responsibility share, we pay less rent. Now, also, you guys could agree to split the rent based on who is using what. Take for instance, one person might want to have the smaller room. The person may not want Wi-Fi. The person may not want television. The person may not even want any electronic besides the phone that they have. And they just want a place where at the end of the day they could just come in and then sleep in their room and then leave. And if you are the one that is coming in with all the electronics, you're coming in with the TV, the subwoofer, you're coming in with laptops, you're coming in with things that are going to make the electric bills higher than the usual, then it falls on you to pay a higher percentage of the rental expenses per month than the person that just has the room, who has no electronics. This is especially if you are trying to get the person to agree on paying Wi-Fi, and the person that is going to be your roommate is not really interested in having a Wi-Fi. Especially if the person doesn't have television. Like say they have a room with a bed and everything in it, but they don't have any electronic. And you're like, hey, what do you think about us getting Wi-Fi? And they're like, okay, well, I don't care about Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, I'm trying to minimize my cost of living, and I don't want to pay for Wi-Fi because that's going to increase my cost of living. Then if you are the one that wants to go for the Wi-Fi, then you have to be the one paying for the Wi-Fi monthly. Do you understand? And I feel like these are the things that people don't really usually talk about. I mean, they don't sit down and look at the rental expenses one after the other and go through it and be like, okay, do we need this or do we not? Oh, okay, I need this. And the other person is like, oh, no, I don't need it. And then you guys could agree on, okay, well, since you need it and I don't need it, are you comfortable paying for it? If the person is like, yeah, that's okay, then that's signed on the contract. There's a contract, a written contract there saying that, okay, we agree that if you get a Wi Fi, which I'm not interested in, you are responsible for paying for that Wi Fi. It has absolutely nothing to do with me. Do you understand? So, splitting rent could also boils down to who pays what when it comes to utility. Now, there are some utilities that are necessities. Obviously, like, the electricity, um, the water, sewage. Now, someone is not going to be like, okay, well, I am going to use the restroom outside of the apartment, therefore I'm not going to pay for sewage. I think that's not fair. As long as you live in there and, you use the water in there and you charge your phone, you have to pay these necessities. And if you're getting a roommate, you have to make these things clear. The roommate might be like, oh, I don't need electricity, I just need to charge my phone. No, as long as you're charging your phone in there, as long as you live in there, you are going to have to pay for electric bills. Why? Because you utilize electricity one way or the other. Even if you're not charging your phone there, the lights, come on, the AC, the heater, yeah, you gotta pay for the for the electricity bill. So I feel like you two need to sit down and list these things and find which ones are necessities and which one you can do without, and agree on, who pays what. Now, there are some apartment arrangements whereby you could come in and there are like four people living in the apartment units. This is especially when it comes to college apartments, where you can have an apartment unit that has about 4 to 6 rooms in there, and there's a common living room, and everybody shares the same restroom and all that. Now, in a situation like that, conflict can be avoided if you all sit down, no matter how many number of you guys are, and agree on how you guys are going to go about paying the rental expenses. Usually, some people like the rental expenses splitted by the number of people, right? Like, take for instance, if the apartment rent, for instance, is $2,000 and there are 10 people living there, $2,000 divided by 10, everybody gets to pay $200 monthly. Yeah, and in a situation like this, it's usually easy when the monthly bills are splitted down by the number of people. Yeah, because then if you're going to go about, say for instance, Wi-Fi, if someone wants to get a Wi-Fi, some people want to be on the Wi-Fi, the others don't want to be on the Wi-Fi, and immediately say there are 10 people there, right? 3 wants to get Wi-Fi, the remaining 7 don't want to get Wi-Fi, and immediately the 3 people get Wi-Fi, the remaining 7 wants to connect, but they don't want to pay for it. That usually causes issues, and the only way you can avoid this is just to have your written contract. Remember, that will always save you from a whole lot of headache, especially here in the States where it's easy to sue someone. Someone can just sue you for something that you guys did not agree on. But if there's always that written contract, you can always have that to back your claim. Do you understand? So if there are a number of people living in an apartment unit, the rent or the bills should be splitted by the number of people equally. Yeah. Also, there is another one that I want to talk about. Another way you could go about it is by a percentage of income, but most people don't like this. That is, whoever earns the most pays the most. Some people may care about it, others are like, nah, they don't want to do that, right? Because it's not their fault that you're not making a lot of money. So they like to do 50-50. That's the most one I've seen. 50-50 split, or split by the number of people living in there. Or I've also seen responsibility share when I was in college, where one person, the college student, has a very good job, and the other person doesn't really have much. and they're like, okay, well, you're gonna be taking out the trash, you're gonna be cleaning up. Because of that, you're only gonna pay about $400, and the other person pays the rest of the money. That I've seen when I was in college. This was like 8 years ago, 8, 9 years ago, my first degree. So to avoid issues, it's always important to agree on which way is the best to split the rent or the monthly bills. You could split the rent, based on income, or you could do it based on room size, or you could just do a 50-50 split, regardless of what the room size or whoever earns the most. Regardless of that, you could do a 50-50 split. You could also do, the responsibility share, whereby you are going to, one of you is going to have to reduce the bills or the rent for the other person, because the other person is, doing most of the chores or taking care of the apartment. Yes. Also, let me add something to that responsibility share. If someone is coming in with a pet, and one of the other one of the other roommates, or one of the other roommates, or the other roommate does not like pets, it could be used as a negotiation to reduce the rent for the person that doesn't like pets. I know not everybody likes pets, unfortunately. I know you may be like, oh, damn, this person, he doesn't like dogs. But he doesn't have to like dogs. I love dogs. You understand? But not everybody likes pets. And that's because of, the issues that come with them. Some of them tend to bite off sofas and damage property, shed falls. And some people don't like that. So in a situation whereby one of the roommates doesn't like that, that could be used as a negotiation strategy to reduce the rent or the total rental expense monthly for the person. And there's something that I want to talk to people about too. If you're my listener, there's something I want to talk to you about. Now, if you're someone that is looking for a roommate and you have a pet, I will always suggest that you go for someone that likes pets. Why am I mentioning this to you? I'm mentioning this to you because issues have risen because a roommate has a pet and they went and get someone that doesn't like a pet, and because of that there is always quarrel, conflict, because the dog or the cat or whatever the pet is shedding their furs around the apartment or is shitting up the whole place. So if you like pets and you have a pet and you're looking for a roommate, you go for someone that can tolerate your pet. And some people may not mind at all. Like I said, the one of the best strategies to get someone that is, good tempered, that can tolerate your pet, and all that, is to just give them that break or that discount in the total rent expense or rent that they are supposed to be paying, and have them again sign on a written paper that they won't have issues, that like down the line, 6 months from now, even though you say you don't like pets but you're okay with this, I'm not gonna have an issue with you. Have them write that down, print it out, have them sign on it, so that when they have an issue with that, you could, tell them to move out, or you guys could take it to somebody or to the court where they're gonna do something about it to fix the issues that you two are having with respect to the pet. I think these are the ways that people go about splitting rent with roommates, especially to avoid issues. And is splitting rent a good idea? Yes, please. It's a very, very big idea. It's a very, very good idea. I meant to say, it's a very good idea. It will save you from a whole lot of headaches. I'm telling you right now. This is because whoever you're going to get as a roommate, remember, you don't know this person, especially if you posted this online or on Facebook or elsewhere, and then somebody comes and you vented this person out and you started living with this person, and you two are getting acquainted, and you two are starting to see, your bad habits and your good habits, or all these things. If you guys sat down and talked about all these things, the chances of you having conflict with this person during apartment lease is going to be very low compared to the person comes in, you've entered the person, okay, the person has a very good job, the person has a steady income. Okay, are you a good person? Oh, I'm a good person. Okay. And then you guys sign. What is the rent? The rent is 2,000. Okay, I pay 1,000, you pay 1,000. Is that fine? And then you guys shake hands. 6 months down the line, you guys are gonna start having issues. Why? Because this is a stranger, right? And there is no written contract. So if the person comes up and start bringing in like 5 dogs as pets, or the person goes and start inviting the whole family members into the apartment and they're spending the night over there, and you don't like that, but there's no written contract that says, hey, you can't bring in your family members to spend the night there. There's nothing you can do about it. And as a result, it's going to create resentments and fights and conflicts that are very unnecessary. Some things that should have been avoided, right? So this is why I always recommend you to have written contracts and discuss about any possible scenario that you know that could lead to conflict, especially splitting rent and bills, because this is where majority of the issues come from when you start sharing an apartment with someone. Now, what bills are shared amongst roommates? The first big one is rent. Secondly, utility bills. Now, most of the utility bills that you're going to get, they don't have to be shared equally. Like I mentioned previously, it has to depend on who is using what, or depend on what you guys are going for. If you guys are going for 50-50 split, regardless of who is using what, that's fine. But if you guys are going based on usage, then that usage percentage, when you write your contract, it has to be very specific. For instance, when it comes to electricity, one of your roommates, let's say there are 2 of you, right? You and the other person. You don't have a television, you don't have radio, you don't have any electronic, you just have your phone with you and your laptop. And this other person has televisions, 2 televisions at least, laptops, radio station, microwave. They're bringing in their own refrigerators. Now, if you get your first electric bill and it's $200, now depending on what you guys agreed on, if you guys agreed on 50-50, then you guys have to split it down to 100 per person, right? But if you're looking at it and you're like, okay, well, it's not fair. I think the only way your electric bills are rising is because of the electric lamp that you have in your room, and then you charge your phone or your laptop. That's it. Then you have to talk to the roommate and tell the person, hey, listen, I'm not bringing in any electronics, right? I am just gonna come in with my laptop and my phone. I see that you're bringing in all of these. Would you be okay if we do like a 60-40 on the electric bills? And the person might be like, no, it's not okay, I'm gonna go find somebody else. Or the person may be like, oh, sure, it's fine, it's only fair. Now, in a situation like that, then you go for what you think is going to not cause conflict down the line. But these are things that I think you two should talk about before one of you even move in. You know what I mean? Before one of you moves in, this should have been discussed already. So that's all I've got to say today. I feel like it's very important when we young working class adults are quite prepared in our art of living, and maintaining and renting an apartment is one of the art of living, and it's an art, honestly. Because if you don't play your cards very well, you'll be homeless, right? And if you have listened to previous episodes of the Weekly Beggar podcast, I have always advocate for, once you move out of your parents' house, you stay out of your parents' house. You come and see them every now and then, but as an independent adult, your independence should always continue year by year, right? And renting an apartment is an art, And I feel like if you're gonna share that apartment with somebody, you have to learn how to split bills in a way that would not cause conflict down the line. And you can only do this through the processes that I mentioned here, through the steps that I mentioned here, through room size, split bills based on income, do a 50-50 split, or a responsibility share, or utility usage split, or you could just split it by the number of people that are renting that apartment unit. And while you're doing this, my friend, I want you to make sure that everything is being written. Why is this important? Because this is the United States of America. If you mess up, you're going to get sued. You have probably seen some of these TV shows where people are dragging other people to court because of the person not being able to meet up with a rental contract or agreement, right? Well, I don't want you to be one of those people. I want to make sure that your art of living is very solid. What do I mean by this? That as you're out there, since you've left your parents' house and now you have your own place, which you're sharing with somebody, that you always have a peace of mind, and that you will not have a situation that will warrant you spending extra money just to get someone out of an apartment because the person is not keeping their part of the rental contract. So that's all I've got to say today. We'll be releasing another episode in 2 weeks' time. I wish you the best in your journey as a working class adult. You're doing a very good job. Kudos. Keep it up. Jimmy out.